Thank you, Eugene, for opening our service with that piece. And welcome to you and to Elizabeth and to all of us who get to be so lucky as to have Eugene and Elizabeth visit us today and enrich our service and our hearts and our minds. I'm very happy to be here. And welcome to anybody who is new here. If you would kindly sign the book in the back, that would be great. It's on the back table just to let us know that you were here. I'm Ann McSood. I'll be the service coordinator. We have assistance devices and hearing assistance devices in the back also, and large print versions of the hymns and the order of service, should you need them. And I remind you to silence your phones now if they're not already silenced. And after the service, please join us for coffee hour. We've been instructed this year not to make it a big feast so that it doesn't end up being so hard on the people who always have to do it, but I sneaked down there and looked, and it looks like it's worth going down. There are lots of things going on at North Chapel. I think Jenny had something to tell you.
Good morning. My friend who's part of the interfaith community here in the Upper Valley asked me to make an announcement about an event they're having. It's called the Interfaith Symbolic Hanukkah Candle Lighting to Shine a Light for Climate Action. And they're going to have Vermont Congressman Becca Balint as a special guest. It's next Sunday, the 17th, from 4:30 to 6 at the Listen Community Dining Hall in White River Junction. And it says, through education, action-oriented, fun, and meaningful activities and experiences in a family-friendly atmosphere, this event seeks to highlight fresh ideas, ongoing climate action, and opportunities that are beginning to flow into the Twin States through the Inflation Reduction Act. Each candle symbolically lit on our Hanukkah will honor an organization or group of people who are advancing climate action and advocating for climate justice, including elected officials, interfaith clergy, higher education representatives, youth climate activists, and environmental leaders in various fields from around the valley. Registration is helpful, but not required, so you can just go. I will leave this poster on the back table, if I remember, or it'll be downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. If there are no more announcements, there are announcements in your order of service. The silent vigil. Yes, I think it's Saturday.
Right. Look at the back of your...
The silent vigil is Saturday, December 16th from 5:30 to 6:30 at North Chapel. Please join us in the sanctuary of North Chapel at 5:30 on Saturday, December 16th for a silent vigil for peace. It will be a time of few words, of music and silence. Let us join together with the Woodstock community to pray for the end of all the current conflicts in our world. Thank you, ma'am. Today's opening words, appropriately, are from Eugene Friesen. Exactly 10 years ago, to almost this very day, I had the privilege of filming one of the concerts here at North Chapel, and then I was pleased and fortunate to interview Eugene for the film The Wisdom to Survive, Climate Change, Capitalism, and Community. And Eugene's section of the film gets the opening words of the film. For those of you who have seen it, you might remember there's this enormous and magnificent humpback whale who breaches out of the water, and then there's a bunch of sequences of humpback whales singing underwater with some man who's filming them. And at that concert 10 years ago, and probably lots of other concerts, Eugene plays duets with the whales. The singing of the whales, that's been recorded, and I first heard it on the Paul Winter concert so many years ago. I can hardly believe you would have been the cellist at that time. You were. So here are the opening words. I feel so grateful for words like these days. Eugene said, I think it's Dostoevsky who said, perhaps it is beauty that will save the earth. The sound of the whales is something that can help us all just to feel the kind of community of beauty that we're a part of. When I hear the sound of the whales and respond with the cello, it is really just about the beauty of their sound. I know that there are some discussions, some mystery around what the whales are actually trying to convey with this extraordinary assortment of sounds that they make. But the other thing is to simply relate to it as beauty.
I have loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night. What a beautiful line. Oftentimes, when I am believing myself to be not fearful, I am also in the presence of fear. And I need to get used to that feeling. That feeling might be a teacher. That contradiction might be a teacher. How long does it take to become wise and brave? I've been a little scared these days. A little scared. I'm not quite shaking in my boots, but I'm a little scared. With such new violence and old conflict and war in Israel and Gaza, with how all of that is reverberating here in the States, on college campuses in Philadelphia and in Cambridge and in Hanover. The world out there and the world in here overlap within us these days, and it makes me a little scared. Bernice Johnson Regan is an artist and a scholar and the former leader of Sweet Honey in the Rock. She is a very courageous woman, and I look to her for strength when I feel weak, and she consoles me. She said, often it is the times when we are shaking in our boots, when we are being most courageous. So I look to Bernice Johnson Regan, and I look to Bruce Springsteen. They are part of the same tradition. The tradition of Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. The tradition of those who push back on fear in times of trouble. Springsteen once said that the things that we do in fearful times, he says, it's never so far, it's never far away as you think it is. He was talking about the censorship that happened during the time of Joseph McCarthy. What happened to Pete Seeger, who lived during those years, what happened to Pete Seeger and a lot of the folks at that time could happen again. It won't happen in the same way, it's more subtle now. And it's different every time, but when you have an administration that punishes its enemies in a very personal fashion, particularly, it's never as far away as you think it is. Jason James Eaton, the man who shot 3 Palestinian students in Burlington in late November, graduated from Woodstock Union High School, 1994. It's never as far away as you think. That idea has a negative expression and it has a positive expression too. Eugene, you told a story yesterday at the concert that you and Liz delivered to us last night. Thank you very much. Eugene, you told a story of going to, I think, the Gulf of Mexico, was it? To get on the water and encounter whales directly. And I think you mentioned that there was a breach that you saw in the distance and that one of the whales approached the boat that you were floating in and revealed herself. Close enough to touch. In my mind, I continued your story in my language, so I said, close enough to touch the face of God. And you said, whoa. That was awesome. I was hoping that you and Liz were introducing your version of Then I Saw Her Face. Now I'm a Believer by the Monkees. But I was disappointed.
Noted.
It was a little bit of a dare, actually. Peace is that inspiration for me. Not the whale, but peace is that inspiration for me and for us in this year. In times, even in times, and maybe especially in times of war. What does peace mean? There are rifles buried by the countryside, by the rising of the moon. May they lie there, long forgotten, until they rust away into the ground. Who will end this ancient hatred? Will the killing to an end? Who will swallow long injustice and take the devil for a countryman? Who will say this far no further? Oh Lord, if I die today, send no weapons, no more monies. Send no vengeance across these seas. Just the blessings of forgiveness to my new countryman and me. Missing brothers, martyred fellows, silent children in the ground. Could we not hear them? Would they not tell us it's time to lay God's rifle down? Who will say this far no further? Oh Lord, if I die today. I love this song. I love the words of this song. I love singing them and I love reciting them. Aurora Levins Morales, the poet, has a poem that begins, "Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorsteps, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders. Teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible." I love words that make me feel, words that remind me to feel hopeful. We are spectacularly beautiful, outrageously loving, insanely kind, astoundingly gifted, impossibly vengeful, inconceivably crushed, permanently broken, tragically flawed, inextricably linked, and utterly miraculous. And when the world breaks down, as it does from time to time, we shatter and we pretend to polarize. It's easier that way. Seeing ourselves in those like us, only in things that ennoble us, so we see ourselves as good. Telling stories of ourselves and of those like us, narrative strategies that estrange us from those who we think are different. Visiting the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. years ago, I was powerfully affected by what I saw and by what I experienced, devastated by the human brokenness that led to the deaths of hundreds of beautiful people, thousands of beautiful people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. The architecture of the museum, the design of it forces our motion. It is a path through the history of the Shoah, the history of the Holocaust, a history from which there is no escape, no architectural escape, and that's the point. The building itself, by its very design, inscribes this into our experience. It's very powerful. It's not an inner experience, it's not an individual experience, it's a shared experience. You look at the people around you differently along the way. You start at the top floor and you descend into deeper and increasing darkness, if I'm remembering correctly. And at the culmination of the exhibit, it takes about 45 minutes or an hour to go through. At the end of the permanent exhibit, the narrowing passageway, the darkening passageway, opens into an expansive, light-filled room in which there is an amphitheater made of wood, beautiful, polished wood. I remember sitting in that amphitheater and collecting myself, catching my breath for a moment after losing my mind for a while. There was a film showing in that amphitheater. It was showing on a loop. I caught the segment of the film in which a weathered and wise survivor of the Holocaust was being interviewed by a younger journalist who was relatively naive, who kept asking supposedly penetrating questions that were more or less superfluous. She kept using the most powerful of words. She kept saying the word genocide. What was it like to be a first-hand witness of 20th century genocide? And do you know other people who are survivors of genocide? Genocide. The word seemed to surface time and time again, over and over, until the wise one interrupted the one who had survived. And she said, "What do you think genocide is?" At this, the interviewer looked confused and baffled. She didn't know what to say. She forced herself to answer, to say what to her had seemed obvious. She said, "Genocide is when one group of people is killed because they are different from another group of people." And the wise one said, "No. No, it is not. Genocide is when one group of people is killed because they are believed to be different from another group of people." As hard as this might be to hear, genocide doesn't happen on its own. We participate in it by defiling one another ritually, by not knowing, by not hearing, by not caring to know, by not daring to hear the stories that make our shared humanity visible and clear, precious and sacred in the holy embrace of God. So easily we forget that we are spectacular and beautiful, outrageous and loving, insane and kind, astounding and gifted. How readily we believe that they are impossible and vengeful, inconceivable and crushed, permanently broken and tragically flawed, fatally flawed. Sometimes we lack the language that we need in order to address what we are seeing, in order to calm our hearts, in order to ease our minds, in order to de-escalate the high and wanton emotions that accompany the challenges that we are facing these days. We are still in the throes of COVID-19. That wounded us. It wounded us all, and it took the lives of so many. 6,949,282 of us died worldwide. 1,158,185 of those lives were lost right here in the United States. 16.7%. 16.7% of the time we were grieving for someone who was here. That's 1 in 6. There are 195 countries in the world. How is it that we took so much more than our fair share of the suffering and the sorrow? More importantly, how is it that our grief, our great suffering, our sorrow has broken us away from peace and from joy? For we are in the season of it. Joy and peace are still ours to grasp. They're close enough to touch. So it is important that we embrace them, that we choose to lead from love. Last month, a day before Peggy Cannonstein died, she died at daybreak on November the 20th. But that Sunday morning, before she departed, I just have to notice that I'm hearing the cries of the kids. It's really awesome. I hope that you bring them into their energy into the service. They're helping me. But that Sunday morning before she departed, she and we were surrounded by joy and by peace. We surrounded ourselves in beauty. We surrounded ourselves with grace, with gentle hearts so loving. We remembered a difficult thing. We commemorated a difficult thing. We commemorated the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. That took place 60 years ago in September of 1963. And John Coltrane wrote a piece about it. He composed a piece entitled Alabama, and he recorded it on Monday, on the 18th of November in 1963. And on Sunday, November the 19th of 2023, we celebrated this history, that gesture of reaching through the depths of sorrow and finding beauty and finding joy and finding deepest peace right here and now. There and then we were suffering. Some of us found courage. Some of us had the temerity to push forward, to find strength of spirit that moves us on. An artist named James Baldwin was courageous. Reflecting on those tragic events in Birmingham, Alabama, Baldwin wondered about what was becoming of his soul. He spoke to the people that he loved about it. He spoke through tremendous sorrow and began to break down the walls that seemed to stand between the so-called black world and the so-called white world. And it took some effort, but he did it. He said, let's talk about what's happening in Birmingham, he said. It is not possible that those people in that city really believe that they had the right to slaughter children. They don't believe that. But they are afraid to speak. One of the reasons they are afraid to speak is that the standards we live by, black and white, north and south, I will extend that, around the world. These are unlivable standards. It's not important to be safe. It's not important to get a car. It's not important to make it. It is important to become a full human being. And this is what we have forgotten. This is one of the reasons why the caliber of our political representatives has become one of the mockeries of the 20th century. I don't know if that applies to today, but I suspect that it does. The challenges are harder now. We have better tools than they did back in 1963. We have hope that is new to our time, and we have a hope that they could scarcely imagine. We can imagine connecting with those who we believe to be different from us. We can imagine connecting with those who are different from us. We just need a story that is strong enough to hold us all, because some of us are hurting in the wake of what happened on October the 7th. Some of us are broken and desperate, and we do not know what to do. It is a hard thing, perhaps the hardest thing, to remain steadfast and connected with that with which we disagree. I'm gonna grab that now. I like the laughter, but the melodies will distract me. Remember that laughter. In the midst of this moment where I'm driving really hard, we were right there with a ready laugh. That's how you know we're winning. Cornel West said once, "When I think of those who came before, the many thousands gone that James Baldwin used to talk about with such insight, the Sojourner Truths, the Harriet Tubmans, the Ida B. Wells Barnetts, the A. Philip Randolphs, the Martin Kings, the Ella Bakers, and the Fannie Lou Hamers. The White brothers like Eliza Lovejoy and Miles Horton, or the White sisters like Anne Braden or Emily Mann. Jewish brothers like David Einhorn in the 19th century, or Abraham Joshua Heschel, or Grace Paley, a Jewish sister. Brown brothers like Cesar Chavez, a gay man like Harvey Milk, or a lesbian sister like Audre Lorde. They're part of the same tradition. It has always been a tradition to say, whosoever will, let him or her come forward. If you're willing to make certain moral choices, political commitments, and pay a cost. It's not a question at all, as we like to talk about these days, a question of political correctness. No. It is a tradition that raises the most fundamental questions of what does it mean to be human. It is no accident that when we as a people, we as a nation, a country, talk about race or social difference, we are forced to raise the most fundamental questions of what does it mean to be an American, which is to say, what does it mean to be human in America, end quote. Although that's a complicated quotation, it is so deeply meaningful right now. For we are called by that brave question, by this brave quotation, into being the best and most gentle people that we can be. This requires spiritual maturity. We have to learn to get over ourselves a little bit, no matter how deep the crisis may seem to be. We have to learn to uncreate, how to deconstruct this world that is so full of territorial and competitive messiahs, claiming to offer peace into a broken world. We have to be that peace. We have to grow into something better. And I think that that's happening. I can hear the poetry of an angel, a woman named Farron, who writes, "In the streets or the after, in the churches or in memory, the light that will guide you is the source of the flame. While stumbling in back alleys in search of right action, I fell and wept darkly and acknowledged your name. And the door to my prison dissolved right before me, and like a young fool, I quick looked for some power to claim. And my wailing increased with the shock of the knowledge that often I have needed something out there to blame." We don't have to keep blaming each other. It's not working for us. It's important that we reach for something new. It's important that we get over ourselves just a little bit and encounter the world that is everywhere around us and is holy and is sacred and is fragile and is broken and is healing and is funny and is wise and is so beautiful. Our hymnals remind us, seek not afar for beauty, lo it glows in the dew-wet grasses all about your feet. All around us and right now, right beneath the surfaces of things, is the Holy herself, anxious for encounter. and she will rise from the depths close enough to touch, and we will see her face and become believers if we are not already. And the Holy herself will look like annoying news online. It will look like sorrow in the wake of tragedy. It will look like cats that need to be fed in the morning. It will look like children that love an out-of-tune piano downstairs. It will look like taxes that need to be paid. It will look like walkways that need to be shoveled. It will look like tears that need to be shed and like laughter that longs to be shared. We are part of one tradition, one brutal and brutally human tradition of trying to find beauty and the holy in ourselves, a tradition of trying to find the holy in one another, a tradition of walking in the footsteps of the wise ones who came before us and still finding our own way. How long does it take to become wise and brave? Seconds or centuries, depending on our predispositions. On the cover of your orders of service are 2 photographs. They're photographs of a tribe of people called pelicans, or people that work at Star Island. The first photograph is from the late 70s of a bunch of people leaning up against tombstones in a graveyard that is part of a softball field. Don't ask. In 20 years after the original photo was taken, another photo was taken with the contemporary people that were working on Star Island, to put ourselves in the footsteps of those who came before. Not to listen to what was going on in 1978, but to listen to what was going on in 1768, when those tombs were erected. It's a long road to wisdom, and we have to listen. When James Baldwin completed a book called Another Country, he finished that book in Istanbul, in Turkey. And he said to himself, these are not my roots, but they are roots that are as old as mine. When we acknowledge that loving common roots of our humanity, it becomes possible for us to become its flower. For we are the young ark of our becoming. And it's time for us to shine. We walk in the footsteps of those who came before, and we find our way forward together and in peace. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Wow. The closing words, I didn't really have a chance to type them out, so I'm going to do my best, but I thought of them after I found Eugene's words and that section of the film that opens the film. And I even recorded it and got it all ready so that I could actually play it, so you'd hear the whole thing, but I didn't have the right equipment, and I finally gave up. But as I saw that part, following right up next to Eugene is Roger Payne, and he is a biologist and a whale expert, and the one who was instrumental in discovering that humpback whales actually sing real songs and recorded those songs, which you then did duets with. And Roger picks up the theme that Eugene left off about what can save us at this point. Because honestly, I don't think we know what to do, and I don't think our leaders seem to know what to do. And based on what you just said, I was at a meeting on Thursday watching a film about Israel and Palestine, and when the discussion came, nobody had anything to say. People were just kind of speechless. And one woman said, we must not allow all of this to steal the moments of joy that we have. And I love that, because those are easily stolen, and we don't have the kids playing on the piano to bring them back. Anyway, Roger picked up on the same theme about what might save us. And he said, I don't think that scientists can save the world. I don't think the world can be saved without paying attention to what the scientists have to say, but I think the people who can save the world are artists. That's because we need a new story that we tell ourselves. At the present time, the story we tell ourselves is that the earth was made for us, and it's for us to exploit it in any way we like. But I think the people who can make a new story about what we're here for, those people are not scientists. They're storytellers. They're myth makers. And I'm all for them and all for what they can achieve.
Anne asked me to follow her words with closing words for our service, which I cannot possibly do. So all I will do is reiterate something that she said, which is that whales do sing real songs. And one of those songs was written by the monkeys. May it be so. Blessed be and amen.